So it's Travis Bottoms with Polite Pest Company or Control?
Company.
Company. Got it. All right, cool. So when did you start up in your business?
March of 2020.
March of 2020. So we're just going into 3 years, 2 3/8 of a year, or something like that.
Yeah, we're almost at our three year mark.
Yeah,
We're gonna have a birthday party or something.
you have to, bro. So I've been following you, what you were doing, and we've had a couple of little, conversations back and forth over you're doing, everybody does something different. And what I want always the audience to understand is that it really does depend. A lot of the growth and a lot of the business and a lot of the modeling really does depend on the person or the peoples that are in this company and the skill set that everybody brings. And when people get discouraged, I want to be like him, I want to be like that, I want to be like this company, everybody starts the comparison, not realizing that not everybody's wired the same, and every company has a unique skill set that they bring to the market and different ambitions and different desires. And that all plays into that growth strategy. But I know that you guys are growing, you guys are rocking, and you started just less than 3 years. You're getting into your third. Let's talk, before we get into the growth of where you're at, let's bring the history into it of how you got into pest control. And I know you have a partner, so it's not just you, and those skill sets and things like that, so people can understand the trajectory here of why you've been so successful at what you're doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, just tell us about that. And
For sure. So I grew up, we'll start like right before pest control. I grew up, my whole family's police officers. So I actually grew up thinking that I was going to be a police officer. Went to a little bit of college, got onto the sheriff's office here in Maricopa County. Spent almost 2 years. It was like 22 months at the sheriff's office. Absolutely hated it. Bought my first house a couple months prior, and I had a pest control guy just like showing up, spraying. He was always happy, and I hated my job, like absolutely hated it. So this guy always came to my house, super energetic, super happy, loved his job. So just one day in the morning, I got off at like 6 o'clock in the morning. He came to my house at 7 so that I could go to sleep. And I'm like, dude, there's no way that you're this happy at 7 o'clock in the morning every
right.
single time I see you. So I was talking to him, asking him, and he was an older guy. And so I was just like, hey, like, what is it? What are you doing? He's like, hey, I'm actually hiring somebody. So I was like, cool. Hated it. So I took 2 weeks vacation, went on a couple ride-alongs with them, fell in love, and then put my 2 week notice in at the sheriff's office, and started doing pest control. My parents, everybody made fun of me. How are you going to go from working at the sheriff's office, making $28 an hour, to making $14 an hour? You have a family, all that stuff. But I just knew, honestly, right away that I loved it. And I think it was just more so the interaction with people, the positive interaction.
Right.
Working at the sheriff's office, your whole job is to have negative interactions all day. So that's kind of how I started. I honestly jumped around to a bunch of different companies here in Arizona, and saw what I liked and what I didn't like. And then I got on with a company that was growing pretty quickly with door to door. And we saw them go from like 3 offices to 9 offices in the 5 years that I was with them. And then the last year that I was with them, we started doing social media marketing, and I saw how kind of that was the next wave of things. With a door-to-door company, obviously, as we know, they grow fast, right? We were doing 5,000 to 10,000 accounts. And so with our social media marketing, I think that first year we did like 300 and something accounts. They didn't want to stick with it. And at that same time, they were actually selling off a bunch of their branches. They sold off a couple in California, Colorado, Tucson. And so I kind of saw the writing on the wall, and decided to start my own and use social media kind of as our launching point. So
right.
that's I
I have not utilized social media to its capacity of what it could be. And my social media influence really is more on YouTube
Yeah.
than on the Facebook. But we've had the conversations, and I'm so intrigued, because I think that's our logical next step, because I'm not into ads. And we're doing social media and we're on all the platforms, but we're not really utilizing that part, I think, correctly. And Eric and I are having these discussions, because I want him more involved in it, because he's doing all the posting and all that stuff for us. But I think you have something really unique. So you were in pest control for how many total years before you started up?
Before I started, 8.
8 years. Okay.
Yeah, like
And
7.5.
as
October was
a,
my 10th year in pest control.
yeah, so you were in for about 8 years as a
Yep.
tech, and then but did you do actual door-to-door sales, or were you just a tech?
So I started in door-to-door sales a year and a half after I started with the old man.
Mhm.
Tried it for a summer, and I got 60 or 70 accounts, which wasn't really anything. A lot of people are like, that's a lot for door-to-door sales. That's honestly nothing.
Right.
So then I stuck to the tech side. Then I grew. I progressed along with management. Service manager, branch manager, regional manager, and then director of service for the whole company of 9 locations.
Yeah, see, I think that's vitally important that we bring up that subject, because the people that actually are growing, they understand the business side. And without
Yeah,
and what everybody thinks, it's just if I'm just a really good
yeah,
tech, everybody's going to knock my door down and I'm going to grow like gangbusters. Yeah, you'll do that the first year, where you'll get to 150K, maybe 200 accounts
yep,
in 2 years. But then after that, you're really stuck, because you don't understand the business side. And I think there is value in becoming a service manager, even though
hmm,
personally, in a lot of companies, I personally have the opinion that the service manager's role is like that guy that sits there apologizing most of the time for how the tech screwed up, how the sales guy screwed up, trying to save the account. There is value there in learning that position, but a lot of time the techs are thrown into that position,
yeah,
and somebody died or somebody got fired, and we need a warm body in that spot. And
yep,
nobody ever grooms them for that, and then they fail so much. So in fairness to them, I got thrown into a lot of middle management positions when somebody quit, but I'm a hustler, and I'm a people person, and I could get people to work together and do what I want, because I have natural skill sets. I still had
yeah,
to develop them. And I think there's an enormous amount of value that you get to see everything when you're a branch manager. You're managing a $2-3 million business sometimes.
hmm,
That's not peanuts. Most people the
oh
average
yeah,
business in America is 500,000 or less. Nobody ever sees a $2 million operation. I've run
oh
$2
yeah,
million operations. And then going into a regional manager, you get to see, so you have a big picture view. You might not understand all the intricate little parts, but you have the big picture view. You get it. And you say, this is how I have to do it. If I'm going to grow, I have to put all this in place. And what the small guy doesn't want to do is he doesn't want all that corporate stuff. But in reality, everybody that I talk to, you can't do it without it. You can't do without SOPs.
yeah,
And everybody's stuck, and they keep, how do I grow to be like this size company? And I get the calls all the time. I says, you got to understand that you got to either bring in a partner that has that skill set, or you have to go acquire that skill set, and it takes longer, because you have to go, and where do you go to learn to be a service manager or an operations manager or regional manager if you don't have the experience? So I think people are comparing apples to grapes, trying to be the
yep,
next big, Aptiv. Everybody wants to be, but
yeah,
then they don't realize what it really takes to
oh yeah.
get there. And then, so when you decided to start up, now you decided, I went through all this and I decided to start up. I know you have a partner. Was that partner immediate, or did you bring him in afterwards?
No, so that was actually a conversation that we had years prior. So my business partner is my best friend. I've known his wife actually longer than him, but he worked in like a government facility. He managed 200 plus employees in like a government facility. And so for him, he knew like that structure of how a business is run. And then I actually brought him on to the company that I was with, just as a technician, because I said, hey, look, if we're going to actually start a company, you need to have the same kind of skill sets, at least the foundational pieces of the skill sets. And the funny thing is about 7 months into him becoming a a technician, he actually became the service manager of our Phoenix location. And then the service manager of the Phoenix location became our office manager for the whole corporate offices. So he was the service manager for probably 8 months before we started, but he got to see that kind of progression as a technician, service manager, dealing with 9, 10 technicians, scheduling, routing, all that stuff. So it was already a pre-thought conclusion before we even started, before he even started in pest control, that we were going to eventually do something. I didn't know it was going to be as quickly as it was, but it was always,
yeah, I think
about.
that was very strategic on your part. The way you set it up, I mean, 8 years of experience is 8 years of experience. And then seeing all aspects of the business, then bringing on somebody who says, I want you to really understand the pest control, and I want you to understand, and doing that, I think, because what we do from a technical perspective, on the simple side, let's just, a lot of guys will disagree with me and want to crucify me for this, but what we do is really very simple. The pest control, as if you're going to do GPC, your general pest control, it's a very simple process. It's straightforward. The model is very simple. It's very easily duplicatable. When we start talking about dealing with 80-year-old homes in Alabama, 100-year-old homes in Alabama, where you're doing termite, that's a whole different animal. We're not comparing that. We're when you're doing L&O, like I do here in South Florida, where we have rain and sunshine all year long, lawn and ornamental is a pain. But when we're talking about the GPC model, which is the easiest model to duplicate, and if I would have do this all over again, I would have never gotten into lawn. I would have just gone straight GPC because I could easily duplicate it and grow it. I can train a GPC technician in 1 week and get him to do 80% of what I know. And the other 20, he's just going to learn it. He's not going to be frustrated with termite and all that. It takes forever to train a termite tech to look at everything. And so, do you guys do anything other than GPC? I mean, are you doing wildlife?
So we don't do wildlife. The only thing we don't do is wildlife and birds. But we do, and weeds, but we're getting into weeds. But it was a natural progression of what we wanted to do, because we wanted to be the best at everything that we do. So we didn't want to necessarily just jump into freaking everything at once. We knew that it was a natural progression. And it was me and my business partner on a truck to start for a couple months. And then we split into 2 trucks. So we both knew how to do a lot of the stuff, but it was just mostly focusing in on GPC, because recurring accounts is what keeps the business afloat, right? We always say that the bill money is GPC, but like the fund money is the specialties and termites and things like that. But you can't always have just the fun money. We need to obviously pay our bills and keep people employed. So we stuck with GPC, and we even kept it small, because there's an East and West Valley of Phoenix. We kept it just East Valley for the first year and a half, because we wanted it super condensed to where we weren't spending a lot of money on things that we didn't want to.
No, I get it, because a lot of the biggest, and I've been saying this for, here in Florida, Miami's a different market, and people try, the things I knew to do when I was in Columbus to build route density and build a business, and I had a distribution business. I can't duplicate that in Miami. It's a totally different mindset, totally different mentality. The county, the way it's set up is, if you don't do one part, like nobody thinks about the entire county. And literally everybody thinks the entire county is Miami, including the people who live here. So if you are in 13 miles and you're 26 miles to your next stop, if you don't do that, you won't ever get any business. So you have to literally almost cover, and it's such a long county. So, but I've been telling people is that the trick for us has been to focus on that 13-mile radius, try to get as much as we can, never travel more than 30 minutes. The guys that go in and says, oh, I'm going to do wildlife and I'm going to do rodents and I'm going to do termite and I'm going to do this. And they end up after a year later, and then they want a guy just like them because he has to be able to do it all, and he's never going to. The franchise model for me, that mentality of just keep everything simple and that it's easily duplicatable, and then keep it tight. But you understood the route density, then you understood the door-to-door sales part, which creates an enormous amount, of route density. A lot of people want to do it through marketing. I said it's very hard to do route density through marketing. So you're how many people are you in your company now total?
6. We're about to hire our 7th and 8th next month. We already have the 2 people signed up, but we just told them to give their companies 2 weeks. So right, February 1st, we'll be at 8.
At 8 in 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's massive growth. Your age
you say that, but I still feel like a failure every single day.
Dude, you know what? As entrepreneurs, there's a hardwire set. You're young, so you're obviously what, in your late 20s, mid 20s?
No, I'm 34. I just turned 34 in November.
Okay, you look awfully freaking young, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you don't look that. You look like you're still in your 20s. But we have a hardwire. You would have never, no matter how prepared we were to do things, college and all this, I was never going to sit at a work to be a cop, because you have you have the hardwire set. You would have never even been satisfied, because you would have like, how do I become detective? How do I become this? How do I become the chief of police? You would have never been satisfied. That is something that is, and I had to get to the point in my life where I was content, even though I'm not complacent. I still want to grow and do so many things. I'm always dissatisfied. And it's something I had to learn to temper, because if not, then it affects me, where I feel like a failure, even though to everybody else I'm succeeding. And it's just very destructive for a lot of us as entrepreneurs, because that's the way we're wired. And a lot of people have no wiring like that. They're wondering why they're not growing, why they're not doing new things. Is they just want to be a tech, and they want to be a tech the rest of their life, and they want to be a solo operator, and that's fine. You can't say I want the other things without the desire and the hard wiring. So it's healthy, but then it becomes like, dang, you sometimes I want to do a next thing because I feel like, oh, dang, I'm empty. I need a new challenge. And to me, the way I'm wired is I hate maintaining. So the moment I accomplish something, I'm already bored with it. I'm done. I want to do something else. I don't see things all the way through the end. I need people around me that I hire to see things through the end, because I will just get it this far and that's it. After that, I'm bored with it. So, and it happens a lot, and it's okay. Some people, like, sometimes the spouses don't understand.
Oh yeah.
The parents don't understand of why you could have all this success and still be unsatisfied and unfulfilled. And it does happen, and it's a reality. So now you're getting all these people. Let's talk about what you did. You did GPC. You said, I'm not going to do door to door. How good are you as a salesman? How do you see yourself as a salesperson?
Prior to this, I'd say that I was like a 6 out of 10. I'm more so informational based, right? Rather than people are always like, yeah, they don't care about information. They, everybody will tell you a different way to sell. I'm more so informational based. I've never held a gun to anybody's head, but I'm more so like a connector than a finisher, as people would call it. But with Polite, I think I'm a 10 out of 10, but it's because of how I've kind of put my company and how I sell, if that makes sense, or the company sells itself. So now 10 out of 10, but prior to this, probably 6 out of 10. And that's why I've stuck with the operations side of everything. But obviously, as I grew into more of a management and upper management, I learned the marketing side, I learned the sales side, I learned all of those different facets, and I obviously became a little better at each one of them. I wouldn't say I'm perfect, but
right. No, I'm, in the same here. Like I'm more operationals, and I've been in sales. The thing is, my sale was always B2B, large corporate, multi-million dollars in sales. It's totally different than when I got into the I did distribution. That was like the closest thing I did, because I've always been more of B2B than I am, B2C. And
Yeah.
and it was very hard for me, even though I'm relational and I tend to, again, informational, I tend to over communicate. So with
Yep.
me, it was, I've always sold the technical side because I've always been in some type of
Yep.
technical sale, where I
Yeah.
had to, when you're dealing with, multi-million dollar deals, it was, you had to be technical.
Yep.
So I brought that, and I tend to over communicate. But you're doing that, and you're doing social media. What did you decide to do? Like, in other words, here's how we're going to launch, and everybody chooses like one or two marketing channels, and to get their client, because you can't do all. A lot of people try it all, and then they
Yeah.
realize what doesn't work. Did you have a clear understanding of where when you launched, this was going to be, we decided we're going to do GPC for simplicity, and now we get into the marketing? And what did you
Yeah.
decide to do?
So it starts before I even left. I did demographic research. So the
Right.
company that I was with, we had almost 19,000 active accounts. And so I did market research on ourselves, and 86% of our client base, at least the information that we had, were female.
Yep.
And then I took all of the female reviews, from all of the states that we were in, took out all the male reviews, and then I did a simple keyword search, and I looked at how many keywords were obviously, like, what was the most popular keyword used in all of the reviews, and it was polite. So, and I think it was only like 36% of
Got
the
it.
reviews had the word polite in it. But I saw, okay, if my demographic is 86% of 19,000 is women, and then 36% of our reviews all have the word polite in it, that's something that they value in the business.
Of course.
So I wanted to portray that right away. I wanted to be that, because if they value it in the business, I want their like initial thought and reaction to already be polite.
Yeah.
If
So
that
so
makes
so
sense.
so so when we're talking about adding value, a lot of people talk about their value is in, well, I offer the best pest control service. I got
Yeah.
the best chemical. I have the most experience. That's what you value. But you
Hmm.
went out and you actually did market research, and you figured out what, at least the top of what people value. And in my opinion, when I've been saying I wish I had more women in pest control, and I've been saying it forever, because 90+% of the people I deal with are women. If
Hmm.
people didn't, one of the things for me that I kept hearing from women, and this just registered, is that a lot of service people are disrespectful. So I think
Hmm.
you heard that they were polite. I heard they were disrespectful because of the way they looked at them. They felt uncomfortable in
Yeah.
the home. When I go in the home, their kids are there, they're there, the
Hmm.
nanny's there. They need to feel safe with the person that's going in their home. And what I kept hearing is that these guys are all looking at her a
Yeah.
certain way and all this. And I quickly figured out, yes, and it's just my nature to be that way, to just be
Yeah.
respectful and just, not
Hmm.
look at women, and just that way, and especially in their home, and disrespect their home. So I
Yeah.
thought that was, and the second part was disrespectful in their home. Like, they treat my home like they leave things laying around, they leave dirt.
Yep.
I carry, my guy says, carry a little vacuum, because if you drill a hole or something and make a mess, you vacuum it up. You got to respect people's home. So
Oh
I,
yeah.
I think you and I heard the same thing. I just, processed it a little differently, where you actually took it and say, this is value. This is real value, what we need to
Yeah.
sell here. And then you use that as a, part of your marketing. And even in your company
Yeah.
name, you named your company
Yep.
Polite. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, that was, I mean, in the the discernment side of what you discerned and said, you know, how did you learn? Did you figure out you were actually good at marketing, or is it just something that you're curious, or is it just your nature?
Just curious. Curiosity, man, has led me to a lot of good things and a lot of bad things.
Yeah.
Even here, right? We've tried so many freaking things that didn't work, that we had to become tunnel vision on things that, you know, we knew worked and what we were going to do long term. Because when you get in business, you know, I'm sure you get 15 phone calls a day from the same marketers, and we're like, you know what, let's try it. It's only $800. Let's try it. And then you try it and you're like, well, I just lost $800. But if it worked and it was $800, then that's awesome. But I mean, there's a
So
lot of
you did
$800.
experiment and try a lot of things, as far as you had your marketing, you had your branding, and you had that in mind of what, you know, who your customer was. You knew who your customer was.
Mm-hmm.
It was predominantly women. It's going to be, you know, this is what they value, so this is what we're going to give them. You know, at the end of the day, what they want is dead bugs, but it's the intangible things that a lot of
It's peace of
technicians,
mind.
yeah, peace of mind, they don't get. You know, they're just getting, if I just do a really good ant job and I explain, you know, how the, you know, the ant has a rectum that looks like this, it's somehow going to
Yep.
make somebody impressed. It really doesn't. But you still over communicate, because I can tell a lot of things you guys are doing, because I can see it in your marketing of that. So how did you decide, like, okay, we're going to try all these marketing avenues, and how many
So
did you try, just to be curious?
no, yeah. So when we started, we knew we were going to hit social media. We knew that that was going to be our number one focus. But I wrote down like a bunch of things for this so that I was prepared. But the one thing that social media isn't a quick way. And when I say the numbers, people are going to be like, "Oh yeah, like that seems quick." To me, quick is door to door. You know, I can go put up 5,000 when I'm putting 537 our first year. To some people that's quick. To me, that's not quick at all.
Because of your
But we
experience in that marketplace,
Yes,
what you were
yes.
exposed to. Yeah.
Yeah, so we knew that that was going to be our number one. But for me, I always feel safe at three marketing strategies, three funnels to bring in our clients. So we tried so many. We tried Facebook ads for a couple months, spent way too much money on that our first year. We spent like $5,000 and got 43 leads. And that's not even sales, that's leads that we got from it. We tried, you know, golf magazines. We tried an actual like local magazine. Um, I couldn't even tell you how many we tried. There's probably 10,
Right.
all ranging from like the magazine was $1,000 a month, and we signed a 1 year agreement, and we didn't get a single customer from that magazine.
Been there.
Um, the golf, you know, scorecards or whatever, we spent like $3,700 our first year, and we found out that it was a scam afterwards. um, so we tried a bunch of different avenues, trying to figure out what was going to be our, you know, second and third. Um, but honestly, our second and third, our second falls under social media anyways. It's influencer marketing, and then Facebook groups is our second, and we currently don't have a third. But because of all your Facebook posts about SEO, we hired an SEO company this year, and we'll start blasting SEO as our our third.
I hope you're not disappointed. It's tough, bro. I decided that my number one thing right now in the way I'm structuring my business in order to get the accounts is that I have to become my chief marketing officer. And because I
Yeah,
made all those mistakes too, I bought all of that stuff at the beginning, and none of it worked. And when I rebranded my company, I already had, you know, knew where I was going to go. I kind of had my strategy, which I didn't have a strategy at the beginning when I built my original business, which was a
yeah.
huge mistake. But I learned from that. I said, this is where I'm never going to be again in this position. So I decided to go the route that nobody was in. I decided, where's everybody heading and what is everybody ignoring? and let me go after that. To me, it was blogging in YouTube because nobody was blogging about Pest and nobody was doing YouTube videos about Pest. And since I did mostly lawn, we were like 95% lawn when I launched. We weren't GPC.
Yeah.
My clients are buying visually beautiful things. They're not buying the whole peace of mind. I don't want bugs in my home. It's a totally different mindset. And since those accounts were very expensive, you know, my average client for lawn, the minimum is 120 a month.
Yeah.
Minimum. So my average is spending around 180 to 240 a month with us. And I'm selling beautiful things. I'm not selling. So I had to have that mindset of, okay, if I can go out and talk about all these plants, people are like, oh yeah, I can't figure out how to get it pretty. I've had 3 lawn companies. Nobody can fix it. I said, you know, we can fix it. So that was just my whole strategy. Now I'm looking more at your model. I seem to like what you're doing, but what I suck at is the actual online engagement. I'm terrible at it. At getting into those groups, to me, that is too tedious. I can't spend my whole day engaging with people in groups. I have to hire somebody to do that. But those 2 models that you're talking about are highly attractive to me.
So
in my next logical step.
Yeah, the weird thing about like the Facebook groups is it takes a while to build, right? But we did something honestly so dumb, but it worked. And so some of the things that people, you know, are scared to do, just try it. And if it doesn't work, then congratulations, it doesn't work. But we gave out like 50 free services our first month because we started March 2nd of 2020. The state closed down in like the 14th or 15th. And so we literally didn't like, I'm about to call the company and be like, hey, listen, is that job still available? Because I got to come back, right? And that wasn't an option. So we literally gave out like 50 free services on Facebook groups. And one in particular, I think we got like 30 or 40 of them. And out of the 50 free services, and we're not a contracted company either, we have 48 of those first 50 customers that we did for free. But that kind of spiked us in engagement for those Facebook groups to where we only did it in 2, but those 2 were already starting out with like 30 and 20 active people in the group.
Right. So just to make it clear, you're not a contracted company now. You still don't have long-term contracts? I mean, nope. and let's explain that, because people say that you got to have a contract because then you get into legal matters. I mean, terms, conditions, exclusions.
Yeah, for general pest, all it is like, we can run your card after service.
Right.
Technicians are allowed in the home, things like that. But there's no contract keeping them with our service. If they want to skip service, if they want to cancel service, there's no terms and
this is the argument that you'll have and I'll have with all these guys that say in order for you to grow and for your company to be worth something, you got to have people tied into the contract. I say no, because what's really valuable is that they stay with us and they don't have a contract. And you still have a 30 to 50% cancellation rate with all of your contracts. So that's, and then you can't do it with door to door. We've never had a contract. We're trying it now and seeing but we're like offering it like, hey, if you want this deal, let's see how we sweeten the pot kind of deal. I mean, if you've talked to Tom Miche, what he's doing. So like, again, we're trying things and it could be total crap, but until we try it, we don't know. I've never tried it. Honestly, I've never actually had a long-term contract for anybody.
Yeah.
And our cancellation rate is 3 to 6%. So you can have this argument all day about I do this, you do that. The reality is you figure out certain things that work for you and just keep doing that. But you've tried lots of things. So you gave away 50 services because you were in lockdown. That's you're like me when he started. We started in 2009 and the market just went like that. And we lost everything, just like people aren't calling, nobody's doing anything.
Yeah.
So I've been through that experience. It is scary, but but you do learn more on how to be nimble and how to be quick to make decisions when you're in those situations and when things are actually good. And then you face them and you're like, now what are we going to do? Because we've been, milking this donkey, easy. So I think you learn more in that time of those troubles. And so you were giving away the services in these groups, and these are, I'm assuming these are local groups that you.
Yep.
Yeah. And I've tried doing it, and my engagement, and it's like, no, I don't engage well with text.
Yeah.
Because I can't, if you've seen my writing and you've seen the stuff I post, you realize I don't do well. I do better in other arenas. I got to hire somebody for that, because I know that if I attempt it, I will tank it. And that's why I haven't attempted it. But so what else happened? Just keep going, because I hated to cut you off on that story.
No.
I think it was pretty
So
cool.
we gave out 50 free services, and in those groups, it kind of just took off, right? Where the one group that we're like still heavily in, there's a couple of them, but that's definitely our like strongest group. It kind of just took off, where every single time somebody was asking for pest control service, we had 5 to 10 people recommending us. And then off of each post, we'd get 5, maybe 10 people signing up, and there was a post every single day. And obviously, the 5 to 10 a day wasn't happening right away. It might have been 1 or 2 every single week, but it kind of slowly grew into what it is today. But we knew that, like, I don't even want to say we knew that we needed engagement. We didn't know how we were going to get it, and that those free services definitely helped spike that engagement pretty quickly.
Yeah, free is still the number word in marketing. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah.
It has been for 70, 80 years, and it still is today. You just got to figure out how to use it smart.
Definitely. And so we literally were talking, and me and my business partner were like, okay, look, we're an every other month service, and we have an initial 30-day, first regular service, and then every 2 months thereafter. So it was like, okay, we can either be broke today and broke in 30 days, or we can be broke today and have those customers coming in 30 days. And so we were like, this is our job to like wow these customers. And we had so many of them be like, watch us, and we tell them, hey, pull open the blinds, watch us, do whatever, just to kind of somehow build a value there. And people would be like, are you sure? Like, and we had some people that were literally like trying to pay us after the first service. Like, no. Like, I thought you guys are new, whatever. I thought this was going to be a crappy service. This is actually a good service. Like, are you sure it's free? What the heck? Like, I'm like, no strings attached. No strings attached. If you want to leave right now after this service and go back to your last company, by all means, go right ahead.
Yeah.
But we're just trying to get our name out there. And it worked, honestly. And then with Instagram, we knew what we wanted to do with Instagram and create influencer marketing and things like that. But we knew that side was going to be even slower of an avenue for us.
Yeah, let me go, because I mean, you understand the numbers, and especially from being in operations. How people say, how can you afford to give away a service and take that risk, and understand that when you're doing marketing, I mean, when I run the numbers nationwide from everything I'm getting back from people, that magic number of acquisition is about $150 per customer on average.
Yep.
So if you give away $159 service and you get nothing, you're still better off than if you spent the marketing dollars and you didn't get anything back, because now you got to still go do the work. So I said, I from a strategy perspective and just running numbers and understanding the numbers, if you give away an initial, now I know people say, well, I'm not going to go into an apartment and give away a $500 initial on a German roach job because the apartment is super. We're not dealing with that. We're dealing with the average 80% 3-bedroom, 2-bath homes that might have an ant problem when you show up, and they don't really have a problem, but they're wanting to maintain. So you're really, if you get a 10% close ratio, or let's say you get a 50%, you're still doing better than with the ads, because LSA ads right now in Miami are $71 a click.
Yeah.
I mean, LSA, unless you're selling, unless you're a super high pressure salesperson selling termite jumps, you will lose your butt doing ads in Miami.
Oh yeah.
Keywords have dropped a bit, but not LSA. They're cranking those up. So to me, that is an actual brilliant strategy where I'm actually in this community where I got about 3,000 homes in just one community. It's a
Yep.
gated community. And we were actually discussing that and saying, okay, I think it's time, because we haven't had to. I mean, I haven't had to. So I think now I can play these games and say, let's just do it, and have a guy out there and say, we're going to give away a free service to whoever calls. And we create a local group for this market only, and we contain it to this.
There's probably already a group, and that's what most people don't realize.
Yeah.
Is that there's a Facebook group for every single neighborhood,
Yeah.
every single one.
And then we got Nextdoor, which we could also. Have you been doing good with Nextdoor?
Honestly, we haven't even tried.
Okay.
Because of this success. And for me, it's the old adage, right? You can do whatever on marketing. Everybody knows about you, but if you don't answer your phone, they're not using you.
Yeah.
So for us, it was just more so about the ability to answer the phone, and we have a 48-hour turnaround time that we advertise on. And so if we don't follow up with that 48-hour turnaround time, their service is free. And obviously, I mean, there's customers that will call in and say, yeah, I don't care, put me on Thursday. And that's obviously, we're not going to give it to them free because it's them. But if they need it right away.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that strategy is brilliant. I think the whole idea of same day service, those are like what people value. So in other words, when you're designing your values, you got a polite service, you got a quick turnaround, you wanted to prove you were excellent at what you did, but you had the SOPs in place, and so you're adding this value and you're stacking your values one by one. And this is what most people just don't get. The average person doesn't get that. And I think you tapped into them. So let's talk about because this is where I'm really intrigued. And we've had this conversation about your influencer marketing, and how did that work out? How does somebody go about that? What did you do?
So first, I always preface the conversation this way first. It's not a strategy that you can just kind of set and forget.
Right.
It has to be a full-time strategy.
Right.
I have a lot of people that start out and they'll pick up, 4 or 5 influencers, and 2 or 3 months in, they're like, hey, I didn't get anything. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what you're paying them, whatever. I'm out. It's not a strategy that you can do that from. Currently we have 107 influencers in our market. So there's a lot. But we just reached out. So I have a program that I can search in, not influencers, I can't find them on there, but I can track their stats on there. So I would go and I'd find an influencer that, and it has to be something that you are willing to let this person talk about your brand, right? You can't have like an Instagram model that's, showing half naked pictures or, whatever on. You have to make sure that they align with your brand, at least, from what they post as well. But I put them into this, and I wanted 1,500 local followers that engaged with them, because you can see their actual following. Like, let's say that they have 20,000 followers. You can find their true reach, which means on this software, it means that 12,000 are true reach, how many real followers they have. But then you can break it down into like the categories of female, male, age ranges, and then also like where those followers are in top cities, whatever. And so I wanted 1,500 in our locations. So that doesn't sound like a lot, but for me, I always thought, just the 1% rule. If I can get 1% of that 1,500, then I'm in good shape. Right. But people will look at it and say, hey, I have an influencer that has 18,000 followers. And I message and I'm like, hey, like, what's their following rate? What's their, interaction rate? What cities are they most popular in? Those types of things. Because an influencer is an influencer. But let's say that they moved from California to Arizona. Where's their following going to be? California. Right. So if they post about me, is California customers going to call me? Yes. So what does that do? Tie my phone line up. but then I'm not able to sell to any of those people. So you have to be pretty strategic in how you actually do it. But we just reach out to the local ones that followed the demographics that I was looking at. Reach out to them. Some of them, want pay. Some of them, their fees are ridiculous. And what most people don't see is that me and my business partner started with $5,000 in a truck. And so we didn't have huge marketing expenditures. Like, we couldn't have those.
Right.
So we reach out to the ones first that, we're able to do it off of trade or 50% off their service, something that could work for us. And then all we ask is that they post about their experience. I think that the last company that I was with that did influencer marketing, and that's kind of where I learned how to do it and kind of set up those structures. Their mindset was a little different than mine was, where they wanted key points and call to actions and all of these things from the influencer.
Right.
But I always thought that they made the post disingenuous.
Right.
And so when you're looking for influencers, you're not looking for those people to follow you necessarily. And you don't expect them to follow you. I'm a pest control page. How many people want to follow a pest control page?
Right.
They follow the influencers for the reason. So I don't want to break their true voice to their audience,
Right.
because that true voice is what brought that audience to them anyways. So I just asked them to, talk about their experience with us, take a few pictures. And honestly, just that alone, one post may lead to one, or it may lead to 10 sales. It just depends. Obviously, in the beginning, and what I always tell people is, don't expect anything for about 3 services. So if you're a monthly service, that's 3 services. If you're a bi-monthly service, that's a month, that's 3 months down the road.
Right.
So don't expect anything for, 3 services, which is, 4 months down the road. If you're a quarterly service, then obviously you got a longer term to wait for, people to truly catch on, because they know that they're influencers. The following knows that they're influencers. They know that they are paid or given stuff for free, but they also know that if something doesn't work, that person isn't going to push it. So
Right.
after,
Yeah, they're not going to put their own line for a couple of bucks, ruin the following they've built, which it takes, it's like me. I'm very careful of who I bring and what I do, because I've spent 8 years building my personal brand, and also online with why people follow me. So yeah, I get it. No, I wanted to, and I'm going to go back to the influencer marketing. I got a couple more questions that triggered, but you mentioned, we'll do a little bit of the technical stuff, because you mentioned it, that you do mostly EOM every other month.
Mm-hmm.
What percentage of your mix is EOM compared to monthly and bi-monthly?
I only have probably 5% monthly customers, and those customers honestly are the customers that say, like, I'm not taking an every other month service.
I want it.
EOM is not an option. But for me, like, my pricing doesn't change. It's a per service, per square foot pricing.
Right.
So if it's an 85 every 2 months, they're an 85 monthly, because my chemicals don't change. We're 50-gallon power sprayers on the back of our trucks. So my product doesn't cost anything different. My technician doesn't cost anything different.
Right.
So we try to get people on an every other month service, but about 5% of my customers are on monthly. We don't even offer quarterly on as an option. If they want quarterly, then we just send them away.
Got it. Okay. So yeah. And let me ask you a question, because I know you're in Arizona. You're in Arizona, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So Arizona tends to be pretty dry. And most of your competitors have figured out that the pricing model for quarterly brings in more revenue. But my experience, if I did EOM, I only do EOM. I send them away too. I don't do quarterly, and I do monthly, but we have to, when we have our script and we're going through the client, we already realize that this has to be on monthly because of the construction and all this. We understand it. So that's the only option we sell. Like, if you call me from a townhouse, the only option you have is monthly. I don't give you an EOM option. And about 5% of our clients are also on monthly, but it's more of a necessity. And if they don't want it, that's fine. We're not going to take it on because that's just going to give us a bad customer.
Yep.
So we're guarding those reviews that are genuine, not trying to push them down, but guard them. And so why do you do EOM in your case? And
Yeah.
not offer the quarterly when all your competition, especially all the door companies, are killing themselves to do quarterly.
Yeah. So the company, the last company I was with, we were huge. So our expenses were, crazy. But they also allowed me to do a bunch of crazy things. So I did my own product testing
Right.
there. And so even the encapsulated products that everybody uses, the demands, the scions, the seismics, all of that stuff, on the label it says it lasts 90 days. In Arizona, because our topsoil, because it is a desert, it's so hard. And what people don't understand about microencapsulated products is it's binding, right? But it has to bind to something like minerals and things like that. And so I saw that the product was breaking down so quickly after about day 70 that from 70 to 90, there was really like not even any product in Arizona. So for me, that's my whole sales pitch to people that come from, door-to-door companies, quarterlies, all that stuff. It's like, hey, we're this way because of how the product works. I'm not going to trust that the product is going to last longer than it has shown to last. Right. And so for me, the EOM, it's just way more safer. And for me, I always tell people, I'd rather make $1 million off of 10,000 customers than $1 million off of one. Right. Because the 10,000 customers are going to obviously help me grow my business to 20,000 customers. So for me, I don't always look at it from, how much money I can get from a customer. I always look at it from a completely different sense, and how many referrals can I get from a customer.
Yeah, ours was the same way. Just, everybody that's heard me probably has heard me say it 1,000 times that I don't do quarterly for the reason we have, everything we design, since I am more technical. I design everything from a biological perspective. Mm-hmm. So my goal is I don't sell you. I'm not in the contract business. I'm in the control business. Yep. I could sell you a contract and tell you what you want to hear if you want a quarterly, because that's what every other company is selling you. I said, but the reason you're calling me and you've gone through 5 companies is because of this. What we found here in Florida is that our products break down because of our soil too, but because of our soil is so alkaline. And we have alkaline water, and then we have 3/4 of the houses in Miami. I don't know how it is in Arizona. I assume it's getting that way because land is so expensive and the lots are getting smaller. We've got a 3,000 square foot house on a 6,000 square foot lot. Yep. And then it's paved all around. You got a pool in the back and you got pavers all around the sides, and you have this product breaking down with the sun, the water, and then you're expecting it to last 3 months when we know it's not going to work. So we design a service that satisfies. So I think we're seeing, from, intuitively, we're seeing things kind of like the same, and why we do this and what our value is, and why we explain that value and why we over communicate it on that. And so let me ask you this, going back to the influencer marketing, you started getting into that, which I found it's very interesting to me. Have you figured out, is there a system that you have, like, okay, this I've been able to figure out based on demographic, and we don't have to give away the secret sauce, but based on demographics and based on this and based on what you're doing and your numbers, is it based on what they want, or is it based on, listen, this is what we can pay based on this? Have you figured out, like, is there a CPM type of formula, things like that you're working on?
Yeah, so it's all about, and the funny thing is I don't pay upfront. It's only paid based off of customers actually signed up. So there's only a few of them that have that, but it's all based off of how much they actually bring in. I'll never upfront pay, and we've had offers from huge, Instagrams that have 400, 500,000, million plus. And it's like, hey, for $10,000, I'll post you on my $1.2 million follower Instagram. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm okay, because you look at their demographics themselves, and like I said, my following requirements in my area for my demographic is 1,500. But the 1.2 million follower person might have 3,500 in my
Yeah.
demographic and in my area,
And that's
because
what
it's
it's
such a
really
large
worth.
account.
Yeah. They're looking, because if you were selling a national product,
Exactly.
that it was appeal. Like if you're selling face cream,
Yep.
yeah, that would work. And it would, and they
Yeah.
figured out, oh, it's worth this much per CPM to me, because
Exactly.
I'm looking at myself as if I was a magazine, and
Yep.
you're being, you understand what 90+% of people don't understand is demographics.
Yep.
And I think the demographics, and I keep talking about that and understanding the demographics, why I stick to my guns on what I do on SEO and on YouTube, is because I understand the demographic. And I can't, like I tell people, first of all, even the biology, we're the only state in the nation that is neotropical, the only area, because we have 5 climate zones. I mean, what state has 5 climate zones?
Yeah.
We have it down here. I mean, I'm in
definitely not us.
no, I'm in a neotropical zone, and it's the only
Yeah.
neotropical zone in the continental US. Nobody understands this, because nobody else, when every model that I see from large brands coming down here breaks down. Their model breaks down when they get to Miami. They have to totally revamp it and do something unique for this, because they don't understand the culture. They don't understand the Hispanic culture. They don't get it. And they don't get that, Hispanics don't buy the same way that Americans do, where they compare this value. This is the price, let's haggle it.
Yep.
That's because they're trained to haggle from the time the price is too high, I'm going to find a lower price. And it's extremely so price sensitive, much more hyper price sensitive than any other area. Probably I would say California would be a next exception. Arizona would probably be there. You have that.
Yeah.
So yeah, understanding that demographics and then targeting what you're doing and micro targeting it is more effective.
Yes.
Than taking the shots.
You said it earlier, right? Where you're like, digital marketing or SEO, you can't necessarily get hyper focused on route density. And the crazy thing about influencer marketing and like the neighborhood Facebook groups is it's hyper local. And so for us,
and I think that's where everything is going. Google is telling us everything is focused on hyper local. So you just because you have a blog doesn't mean you're going to be able to rank it locally unless they're looking for something. So that's why GMB now is so big, and that's why LSA is becoming big. But the prices of that is getting the cost
crazy.
of that. Yeah, it's everything eventually you get in first, and then you milk it, and then you eventually have to do other things. That's why I my friend Joel, who's up in Broward, he decided he was going to do the local groups thing, and he did. So he milks that every month. He said, bro, I don't do any advertising. I get all these leads. Every time somebody brings up the name, who's has a pest control company, my name gets brought up. Yep. So he doesn't have to do the market. But again, it's that investment in the beginning that everybody buys into I can get you leads quick. And if you sign up with our platform, nobody wants to put in the work that it really takes to say, okay, I know this is going to be slow. It's not going to be quick and dirty. It's going to be slow. But in the end, the investment, you got to invest into it. And it's usually time, because it's not money. It's time. And what people are, I just want someone that I can call that sells me a lead for $13. It doesn't exist. I just had a company call me and says, I will call you with a customer on the line, but I want $61. And if you close it, that's your business. But I'm calling you with a customer on the phone, and you've got an exclusive lead, but at $61 a lead. So the reality, this thing that people throw out these numbers of $13 a lead and $20 a lead. I said
And we paid a guy $30 to do that, and it was funny because we realized, right, $30, and he was telling us, we have this company and this company, this company, and for about 6 months, he sent us probably 10 leads a month at 300, $300 a month for those 10 leads. But those leads, with how we're doing things, they're just completely different leads. And we'd close probably 60% of them.
Which
Whereas
is
with
really good. I
impl-
mean,
yeah,
overall,
but with our marketing strategy, we're closing close to 80% of our leads.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's just a completely different marketing strategy.
yeah. No, I look at that and I hear what everybody's saying, and then I said, okay, yeah, I get it, but it doesn't make sense for us. And you just said it
Yep.
because of the way. I mean, any other company would give their right arm to have
Yep.
that close percentage on that cost. Think about it: $300 on 10 leads. It's $10 a lead,
Yep.
and you closed 60% of it. But then what is the customer expectation? Does it fall into your demographic? The unsatisfaction part is what you don't see on the back end. And I think
Yep.
that's what I worry about most, is that unsatisfaction where when people call us, they know exactly why they're calling us. I mean, they've seen already, oh
Oh,
yeah, I've seen all your videos. I mean, this is what I hear. I saw your
yep.
videos and this is why I'm calling you, because exactly what you said is what I've experienced. So,
Yep.
for me, that's why I do what I do. And everybody criticizes, I don't get SEO. I don't get video. I don't get it. But it's how we make that phone ring. And
Hmm.
that's been my thing. So so I know that you've had a couple of companies already want to know that sauce, because you've been doing some consulting and you've been traveling
Yeah.
and doing all that. What do you think for those people? Will they be able to implement it? Because it doesn't. You got to. What I find out is that I tried to teach this model at other companies. Says I want to do what you do, and then I go visit them, but the culture of the company, the management style, even with our services, why are you doing quarter? You
Yeah.
got 20. They're complaining about their 20% callbacks. Is you got to sell monthly by monthly. Yeah, but we make more money on the quarterly. We can't
Yeah.
stop doing this. And I said,
Yeah.
you can teach you one aspect of something, but trying to incorporate a model into another company, I think gets very hard. And that's what I've
Super hard.
experienced. And because they can't assimilate their people, you got to change the whole mindset of the whole culture of the whole company.
Yep.
It's not the owners want it because they see, a revenue opportunity,
Yeah.
but then they can't change their culture. What have you experienced so far? What have you been doing with that?
Yeah. So with consulting, it's funny because like you said, it's all about the culture, right? It's
Yep.
all about having the right mindset, the right people in place. Um, where it's easy for us because it was just my business partner and I from the start, and then we make the hires based of that, off of that mindset, off of the culture, off of kind of where we want to see ourselves in 5 years. Whereas with a lot of other companies, they don't necessarily have that same mindset.
Mhm.
Um, or they want that mindset, but they haven't started it from the beginning. So it's hard to clean up a mess after the mess is already made. So it's hard for companies, but like I said, it's an all encompassing thing, right? I wrote some like pros and cons of what we do, and so like the first pro is brand awareness. I don't look at what we do as because I feel like there's two different types of sales or marketing strategies. There's direct sales and there's brand awareness. At least how we do things. So pros, brand awareness. Two, high customer engagement. Threes is obviously the shares on social media. Four, helps create a culture. Five is the sales that come afterwards, and then six is recruiting, but it's recruiting based off of what we've already created.
Yeah,
If
the
that makes sense.
foundation has the foundation. Even with branding, you decided I'm going to do the demographics. I'm going to create this brand where most people who have grown pest control, this brand is not something you can create because it takes multi-millions of dollars. But I only have to create the brand in that customer's mind. I don't have to
Yep.
create it into everybody's mind. And then they're saying, well, let's not focus. I focused on brand because I understood that I had to in order to differentiate my product, because if
Yeah.
not, it's just a Me Too spray service. What are they buying? And that couldn't differentiate it enough to say our chemical is this much better than their chemical. I mean, at the end of the day. So I think that foundations where people don't start with a foundation, or the foundation they went with, and now they want to change it, you have to start all over. This is why I see a lot of guys just sell it and let's just start a new company.
Yeah.
Because we can't really turn this one around the way we want to do a lot of the modern things that people are wanting. And you're 30 something. You're starting to sell a lot more to that 30 something group that's starting to get married and have kids late in life. And what they value, and what this company that's a 30, 40, 50-year-old company values, is what your parents and grandparents valued. And I think that's changing. And then you're trying to change it. And what you're doing is saying, this is my demographic. This is who you have your avatar.
Is 25. Yep. My demographic is 25 to 45. And so, like, it's funny when even, pest control guys will look at what we're doing and they're like, I'll never do what you guys are doing. That's so unprofessional. That's so, whatever.
But your
nobody's
group
going to
gets
take
it.
you serious.
Your avatar gets it. They
Yes.
and you're catering to them. You're not trying to cater to everybody. And this is where the mistake is, that they're figuring it out, that their clientele is dying out, because that 80 something is dying, and and their parents are like, we're just going to buy a condo. We're tired of the house. You guys are gone. Why are we going to go through this massive expense? Let's just do something else.
Well, the crazy thing is like we'll get the daughter or the son, that's 27 to 30, and with that, we'll service them for 6 to 8 months, and then we'll get a call, and it's the parents that are like, hey, my kid loves you, and so, like, did you guys go to high school together? And we're like, no, but they just, they're like, oh, well, they said that they like know you. No, that they I mean, we know them, we service them, they're a great customer, they've been with us for a year and a half, but no. And she's like, there's no way that my son-in-law loves you the same way that he does unless he knows you. But it's just that younger generation that then leads us to obviously referrals and things like that. But our target audience is definitely females from the age of 25 to 45.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where I think, again, going back to understanding your market, that where people don't get it. And because I get a lot of these guys who are in their 40s and 50s and saying, I want to start up now, and they want to service their grandparents' house, and not realizing that that requires you to go there every single month, spray it inside and out, and say, I can't sell an every 2 month service outside only, because my customer would never buy this. Is you got the wrong demographic. You don't understand your avatar. And I decided, I understood that. I spent 7 years to close down the old company to open up a brand new one with a different brand, and brand was at the top and culture was at the top. And all the things that you're describing, these are all the things that are at the top. And then we hire based off of all that, versus the companies I saw were growing and were struggling and were doing all this. They decided to ignore all that and said, we just got to go after sales. And then we have to go after, we don't have systems to train, and we don't have SOPs. We're just going to hire people from other companies. They have experience already. We don't have to train them. And I say, that's a recipe for disaster, but go ahead and do it your way. And then 6 years later, they're like talking to me about the same problems. They're burned out, they're tired, and all this, where you're growing a company based on these cultures and your values and what you understand. And you're a lot more at peace, enjoying the growth. It is a lot of stress. Let's not underclassify that stress. But I think it's the stress that you created it on your terms. And then I think you're better able to deal with it. With me, I created a lot of stress on my terms that I'm able to deal with. And I think everybody is and I'm 50 and I'm slowing down, and I'm realizing I'm bringing a lot of younger people in to do a lot of this, because I see the need for it. What you see, I see. A lot of people thought, before I ever showed on video, they actually thought I was in my 30s. The way I talk is I'm very progressive, but I understand that the market rules. It's not my preference. I could give a crap about what I think. It's
Yeah.
what do people want? What do I give them? Because the market is going to rule in the end. So you're doing the influencer marketing. We covered that. Let's talk about hiring, because you're obviously doing a lot of hiring. This is a really, really tough part for a lot of people, understanding that everything is based on that. What do you look for in a tech when you're looking to hire them? What do you look for in them?
The thing about hiring for us is we've made mistakes, and we've hired, wrong people. In the last 6 months, we've gotten rid of 3 technicians, um, because of how our standards are and because of what's expected of us. I'm super slow to hire, but pretty quick to fire, just because if they're not holding that standard. But honestly, a lot of our technicians have come from customers, and it always kind of happens that way, where they're a customer, they experience it, they love us, and the husband, kind of like my situation, and I always look at it almost like that same situation of, hey, I started in pest control, and I came from the guy that serviced my house. But honestly, what I look for is, like you said, right, pest control is probably the easiest job in the whole world. uh, and I always preface it as so, where it's like, look, the job itself is easy. The hardest part that you're going to have to deal with is Phoenix summers. If you can't work from 7 to 7 at 115 degrees, then you're not the right fit. And that's always how I preface it. It's going to be the worst summer job of your whole entire life. But then you have, 6 months of 70-degree weather, that you love.
Yeah.
But for me, it's more so personable skills rather than somebody that can get down and dirty. Just because it's all about how we are personable, and pest control is easy to train. To be completely honest, as
Yeah,
as
it
you
is.
know, GPC especially. I always tell people it's just 100% effort based. Whatever you put in is what you're going to get out of it. And if you put in a person that wants to clock in at 8 and get off at 3, then that's all you're going to get out of the job. But I look for younger dudes, that want something to grow with.
Mhm.
I don't want just at least at this point, I know that once we get bigger and we have, 12 to 15 techs, there's going to be lifetime techs. And I know that, right?
Right.
Working at the other company, there was probably a 60-40 split of like, okay, you're a lifer at the technician spot. And then the other 40% of people that want to move up and, excel in their jobs. So
Right.
I'm okay with it at a certain point. But for me, I look at somebody that's able to hold a conversation, um, look people in the eyes, smile, has a confidence about them, and somebody that's, I don't even necessarily care, like clean cut, right? I got a freaking big old beard. Um, but for me, it's just more so the comfortability aspect of it, because
Yeah.
selling peace of mind, I always get from other pest control companies. We sell peace of mind, and people want to feel protected. uh, well, protection and safe, they can mean a lot of different things. So for me, I don't want to be like the biggest burly alpha male, at least in my company. I want people to feel comfortable with us.
Right.
So somebody that is able to make people feel comfortable is probably like my number one thing.
Right. Yeah, no, that those are all the soft skills that you really can't train. And if you can, people already have it, but it's just never been taught. And you gotta,
Yeah,
but if the person genuinely can crack a smile and be engaging, genuinely, like I want to engage with you, not be cramped, just clammy,
yeah,
and I just want to sit behind a keyboard all day and an IT guy and never want to talk to people. It's not the job for them. Um,
yeah,
the biggest, the biggest hurdles that I have to overcome with the technicians is their communication skills is they're
yeah,
so bad,
yeah,
that and what I mean is, like, not that they can hold a conversation and talk intellectually. It's just simple communication, like being responsive to the
yeah,
client, responsiveness, the speed of, the guy texted you this morning and it's noon, it's 3 or 4, you still have not responded because you've been busy. I
yep,
mean, those are things that it just drives people insane. And a lot of the younger people don't get it. It's like, everybody's like from California,
Yeah.
everybody's on island time. We get there when we get there. What's the problem? Like I
Yeah.
had one guy says, you can't tell a client you're going to be there in the afternoon. What does that mean?
Yep.
But, when you talk to a Hispanic, depending on where they're from, ahorita doesn't mean like ahorita. It means, it could mean like in the next 15 minutes or the next
Yeah.
15 days.
Yeah.
We don't know. We're like, I'll get to it ahorita, mañana,
Yeah.
so those are
Which
things.
morning? Which morning, man? Which one?
Yeah, I know which one. It's like, I'll call you back in a minute. I like, is that a prophetic minute? Like, like
Yeah.
1,000-year minute, or is this because I still
Yeah.
haven't heard from you? It's been, 2 hours. So the communication and that whole of the generation, it's the issue that finding those people with those skills. I had an interesting one I just did. I don't know if you read the book. Maybe you haven't. You can bring something on this because I'm going to have a roundtable discussion about it. I think it's that important. The 6 geniuses of in the workplace. It's based on your major soft skill that you bring to the table, the major 2. And then everything in that company or what you do, that's what brings you the energy. So if you stick somebody in a position where that's actually their bottom skill, it frustrates them to death, even though they can do it, and you keep utilizing that person and then they burn out. And we can't figure why people are angry and burned out all the time. It's just because we're starting to stick a bunch of people in places they don't fit, because that's the biggest mistake solo operators make, is I want someone just like me, and you're never going to get it. So I think that it's a great book. I mean, if you get a chance, I think you'll get a lot out of it. I got a kick out of it. I took the survey, and it was just like, I'm innovative. Like, I'm a dreamer. I'm always having my head in the clouds, thinking about the next idea. And then I'm also a person that wants to help people. And then my second core skills is actually the invention part. And, galvanizing a bit where I can bring people together, but it's not like my strong thing. And then the bottom is seeing things to the end. Like, I have a lot of discipline to continue to do things, but it's in the minutia details that I just like. I've got to do a lot of things right now where I got to get the state. It frustrates me to no end to work with the state and getting all my classes registered and getting all this done and going through the process. I got a product that we developed 3 years in development. It actually works. Now I got to go through the whole registration process. That's where I get lost in those weeds. And that's where I get totally discouraged from doing it. So now I realize I just got to hire somebody to get that done.
Yeah.
To get it across that line, because I don't like doing that. I'm more of a curious. That's why I'm good. I'm a troubleshooter. I like to find problems. I enjoy finding the problem and then solving it. But then if it becomes this long, drawn out minutia thing, I lose it. So I think for people who are in business and employees, to understand that about themselves, have that self-awareness, I think it's invaluable to know, oh yeah, I fit here better than I fit here, because then they can come and tell you, I think I'm probably, this is also in employee engagement. When we talk about the workplace and that 60-something% of employees feel disengaged, is because they're either being underutilized or not being utilized in their real potential. They're doing a job that they signed up for, but it involves so many things that they didn't sign up for. And then, or when somebody quits, gets fired, and things get tight, they end up doing 3 and 4 things because they can do it. But then they're like, I feel burned out. I feel like I don't want to go to work anymore. And I think that's where, the employee engagement, and a lot of the old people don't understand this, that disengagement, there's this chasm between my father's generation, and even my generation of Gen Xers, with millennials and Gen Z, and now the alpha generation, how they're going to see that. And they've got 2 generations now in the workplace that they can't deal with. And how are you dealing with that? I mean, like, you finding that you hire mostly younger people, you hire people with no pest control experience, you train them up yourself. What do you feel that?
So we actually like somebody that has like a little bit and it's weird because it's not necessarily like years of experience. It's more so like couple months of experience, maybe up to a year of experience, where they were trained somewhat on certain things, but not necessarily trained on how we want to do things. But they're not also old men stuck in their ways, grumpy, want to do things. So we have a couple of both. The two people that have come in are definitely, shorter term technicians at other companies. And then the other two are fresh, like no experience whatsoever.
Right.
So I don't necessarily want, like, we've had I hired a dude that was a crazy technician for another company, but the way that we did things and the way that he does things is completely different.
Right.
And it's funny because, like, when he first started, he was like, man, these customers freaking love you. I'm like, yeah, because that's what we built. But then he comes in and he's like, yeah, well, half of this stuff isn't even needed. And you're like, well, no, it's needed, and that's why they love us.
Yeah.
So it's like a mixture of a little experience. Maybe they know kind of what the job entails, but they're more so looking at it. And those people have come from, the social media and the growth aspect of, like, hey, this company isn't necessarily the best, and there's a reason why your customers love you, so I want to be a part of it.
Right. I'm hearing that more and more from companies that at the beginning they were just, grinding it out, trying to survive. And then they started focusing on this early on. And
Yeah,
now that's what really made the difference in the hiring and acquiring, because people are actually looking to go work for them versus them having to go where you hear constantly, I can't find anyone to hire. And then when I
yeah,
start asking the really hard questions that make people uncomfortable, then you get, oh, I get it, but I'm not going to change it. I got to do this right now. It's like, that's a
yeah,
problem. So understanding that you're creating this, it's kind of like I don't know if you have it over there. I think there's mostly a Southern company. There's a company here called, it's a really cool company. They're not that old. I don't think so. They're called First Watch.
okay.
Okay, First Watch is a breakfast and lunch place. They
Oh yeah,
only
yeah.
they only open for breakfast and lunch.
Mm-hmm.
They don't
Mm-hmm.
open for dinner. I think they're done
Mm-hmm.
by 3:00,
Like 3 o'clock. Yeah.
and they're done. If you don't get in there by 3, you're not getting a meal that day. But you can have breakfast and lunch all day long.
Yep.
And it's really posh, nice tables, the
Yep.
decor is nice, and it's bustling with kids, kids 20-something year olds.
Yep.
And then I walk into Denny's and I'm sitting there and I have the grumpy old people and they're understaffed.
Yeah.
The place is dirty. It hasn't been renovated in 10 years. And for like 10% more, I can eat at this place for not much more. And everybody is super engaged and there are plenty of staff. Like, I literally will sit there and I will have 3 people walk by me saying, have you been served yet? Do you need coffee? You
Yep.
need this? And I walk in and I'll wait for 10 minutes and like nobody even looks my way.
Oh yeah.
And it all has to do with that culture. It has to do with what they set up. And then trying to turn those old businesses around and trying to turn that culture around. When you're saying you can't find people, I understand it's difficult.
Yeah.
But from what I'm seeing from the companies that decided to make that shift, even later on in their business, they did the shift 10 years. They realized what we're doing is unsustainable and we need to change. And then the owner decided he's going to change it and upgraded it. And then now they can. It's still painful, but but also that when I'm talking to these owners, that change came about because they literally hit the wall. They crashed and burned and says, I don't even want to be at my own company anymore. I don't even like the people I'm with. But you hired them all. And you made those. You see what I'm saying? So it's like the pastor that complains about, I don't want to go to church on Sunday. The people don't even like me. It's like, you're the pastor. You got to be there. So I think that there is the value in listening to what you have to say to start either making the changes and realizing if you want to be a 21st century business that people want to work at, things have to change. You have to create the environment. It is your responsibility to create all that infrastructure, set up those values, which is what you said. You got 6 of them, which are really values. things that you value at your company, and write those in stone and say, this is what I mean, make decisions based on this, not based on how I feel that morning and what book I read last
Well,
week.
yeah, and that's the thing that a lot of people, they laughed at first when we came out with the name. They did all that stuff, right? Where it's
Right.
like here there's the hip pest control companies that are coming out, and they're branded to be shirts and hats and whatever. And I don't necessarily think that my brand isn't wearable, but it's not necessarily like that cool streetwear brand.
Yeah.
Where for me, that wasn't necessary. I mean, would it be cool to be able to wear my brand like that? Yeah, of course. And I have designs and whatever, but that wasn't my top priority. And
Right.
sometimes I think that that's the top priority of some companies is like, well, this is my brand and this is how I'm going to get people in and whatever. But then they go work for that cool pest control company, and they're like, man, this sucks.
Because it's image. It's
Like,
all based on image.
yeah,
There's very little substance. In other words, we have all these values on the wall, and this is what we believe, except nobody's living it.
exactly. Yeah, you
Yeah.
go in and it's like respectful, and then you go in and you get yelled at it every day, and
Yeah.
people are like, first core value is respect, and you don't even respect yourself half the time. So
Right. Yeah.
you,
So,
you
so,
definitely you definitely have to live it.
yeah, because they decided that marketing and, like I said, marketing and sales is a thing, and but we're not really living it. I mean, there's a lot of companies like that that start out really well. They start out good intentions, and then they get sidetracked from their core mission and
Yeah.
vision and values. I'm just so mission and vision driven, and then I've stuck to my guns so much, even when I've been criticized to death that you're not going to do it, you're not going to make it. Like my technicians, this is what I hear constantly from my technicians. Dang, bro, you spoil your clients too much. Literally, that's
Oh,
what I
we
hear.
just had a technician quit, and he actually was a customer. Well, his wife obviously signed up, but he was a customer of ours. And his text message to my business partner was, "I've never worked at a company that was so customer obsessed." Um, and he's like, I will never work for a company like yours ever again. You don't care about the employee and whatever. And it came down to, for us, if the gate's locked to their backyard, we don't service. We're not going to charge them for the front yard only, because it just is a negative interaction, and we don't
Right.
want any negative interactions whatsoever. And so our company policy is you call, leave a message, and then you text right afterwards. He didn't want to leave a text and wait 10 minutes, which is company policy. And he texted the lady, and said, "Hey, I'm outside. Your gate's locked. Can't service the house." And in the notes it says, the keys are under this rock or wherever the key was. And he obviously read it, because when we talked to him, he was like, "Yeah, I read it, but I read it afterwards, and it's not my job." We're like, "Dude, just go back to the customer." "I'm not going back to the customer." We're like, "No, dude, like, go back to the customer." Like,
Yeah,
it's not
his
a question
idea.
anymore.
Yeah, his idea of not being cared for as an employee is that I don't really have to cater to the client because it's beneath
Yes.
my values. And then
Yes.
it's a self-centered. I'm not understanding that's the customer that pays your bill. That's what we built a company on.
Yeah.
And I get it. I look at certain companies that obviously they're large scale. A lot of things don't translate, and I have to learn how to. But like when I look at a company like Chewy and Zappos,
Mm-hmm.
you're catering to pets, and you're
Yeah.
selling shoes, but the culture is of customer service in a way that isn't experienced in a regular basis, and it makes them
Yes.
stand out. And a lot of people want that. There'll be a Karen when they don't get it,
Yeah.
but then when it's their turn to do it, they're like, "Oh no, I'm not gonna."
Yeah.
I think it has a lot to do with servanthood and servant hearts. That if you don't, that's what I look for. I look for
Yeah.
people that have that servant mentality, because if you don't, you will always look at this as an unreasonable request or chore. But
Mm-hmm.
it's like me with my people. Hey, bro, explain the scope of the service, what you're gonna do when you're there. Explain it when you did it, and then tell them what to expect. This cuts
Yeah.
down on 90% of the complaint calls that oh, if I know that you're going to be back in a week,
Yep.
then I won't call you because I know you're going to be back in a week. And
Yep.
therefore I'll just be patient for a week because you told me. And usually if you explain the biology in a very simple term, you explain all this, it ends all those phone calls. It's when I get the phone call that the tech was here. He just left. He didn't tell me he was leaving. He didn't tell me what to expect. That's what I'm talking about. The communication is simple things, leave the gate locked,
Oh,
leave the hose back, don't, treat people again, the respect thing of
yeah.
respect people's homes. And a lot of young people just don't have that mentality. It's like, I still live at home with mom and dad and they do everything. I don't have to do crap.
Yep.
I
That's the
think,
thing. Like one of the calls was like, "Hey, I told him about a spider web around a light, and I don't even know what he did." And I'm like, "Well, is a spider web there?" And the lady was like, "No," and I'm not trying to necessarily, because I reached out to the lady to do quality assurance, but she was like, "No, the web's not there, but like, did he treat the light? Did like what was done? Was there any eggs in it? Was there like what was it?" And for me, all the other technicians, would go back and be like, "Hey, look," and that's what I always tell them, right? Like, if you go to a door, you knock and say, "Have you seen any bugs?" And they say, "I saw some ants." That is their one issue that you need to focus on.
yeah,
Okay, obviously treat the whole house, but that that's one thing that's top of brain. A lot of those other issues, they could have seen 12 crickets, a scorpion, whatever. But whatever issue is top of their brain is the biggest issue that they have with us, and not necessarily in a negative sense, right? But that's something that you need to like
yeah,
clear from the top of your
that's what
brain.
their pain point is.
Yeah,
And then just, that's why I said, well, I treated for the ants, I'm
yeah,
going to be back next week and follow up with you. And this is what I tell them. I said, the follow-ups, you don't have to justify a follow-up to me. You don't have to
yeah,
tell me. You just do it because it doesn't count against you. It isn't a reservice. And if you're
yep,
following up with that client, then that's fine. I don't need to know. Those are
yep,
the freedoms I give my techs but I need you to follow up. It's part of, and so when they don't, they said that he told me he was going to follow up and he didn't. That's your responsibility because the system allows you to set it all up. It isn't like,
yep,
oh, I forgot because I have to remember it
yeah,
all. So a lot of the things with my techs is I let them manage, but I have a different, and I keep talking about this. I'm more of a manager in operations. So I try to tend to teach people how to be managers.
yep,
And I want people with those skills. You know what I want? Honestly, you want guys with experience. I want to hire that Subway manager
yeah.
that says
I can't tell you how many people I found from freaking fast food windows that
because they
literally will
understand
give.
operations, they understand protocol, they understand customer service. He says, but I'm tired of dealing with all these kids that I have to hire and that nobody wants to work. And when nobody shows up, and then on top of that, they're only making like 50 something thousand a year. It isn't like they're
Yep.
making a fortune for running $1 million store. I said, what would you like to do if you did this and you can do this work? And you can make more than you're making now without all those headaches that are what your pain points are. Again, it's trying
Yep.
to figure out what people want and saying,
Oh yeah.
I can't give everything to everyone. I can only give, our model is this. This isn't your model. It isn't his model. This is our model. And it's based on these principles and these core values. And this is what we have to offer. And everybody's like, you're never going to get anybody to work for you. It's like, you always get that, you're never going to get that done. You're not going to get it off the ground. Let's understand that. I've always had that mentality, what you said in the beginning. If I can just get that 1%,
Mm-hmm.
I always look at everything in a 1%. No, I want 80% of the market. And they start talking nonsense. You can tell they've never done anything in their life
Yeah.
when they start
Yeah.
talking like, I want,
My market share is 78%. You're like,
yeah,
what's the whole market? And they're
yeah,
like 10,000. You're like, that's not even close to what the market is.
yeah.
Congratulations for
So we're not
ending this
even,
conversation.
yeah, we're not even at 1/10 of 1%, but I'm focused on
Yeah.
just the 1%. And I can get that, focus on that client that wants this, but we're losing. I just had one of my sales guys. We're losing a lot of opportunity because you want to make every sale, every call that comes in because you work on commission. And I said,
Yep.
I won't sell every deal that comes in. This is why I pay an enormously high commission. because I want you to be able to turn that business down. You can't get greedy on it. Says we need to go into this market. Next is going to be we're losing B calls. I need to do Bs. I am not a B guy. You're not a B guy. How are we going to do Bs? I would just rather refer it because I only get one B call a month. You're complaining that we lost one B call. I only get one B call a month. It's not worth it to me to really focus on that. I need to focus on that, on the big picture. I think I'm gonna have to make a trip, bro, out to Arizona and hang out with you, because I'm looking at companies that are doing things like this that is totally different to what everybody else expects. They're having success with it, and people are like, they have to be cheating. They have to be like giving bad service, and because it can't be done, and you just can't do stuff like that. You don't get that growth. But understand, again, to your experience, it's unique to you. Nobody, your experience. I listen. I know what I know, and I don't know what I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I got to play my strengths. I can't play what I think it could be, because I can't pull it off. I don't think I could. I don't think personally I can pull off what you've pulled off, especially with the social media influencers. I understand it conceptually, but when it comes down to this, having to do this on a daily basis in groups and all that, and engage, I that drives me insane. So I rather keep producing videos.
That's why I try telling people all the time about it. I get messages all of the time of like, hey, what do you think about this, and what do you think about this? And everybody's going to try it differently, and I never want. And sometimes I come off as an asshole, and I'm like, it's not going to work, and I don't want to sound like it. And sorry if you're not allowed to cuss on that.
No worries.
But for me, it's just more so speaking from experience, right? It can't be some haphazard thing that you do, and so if it doesn't work for you, then that's okay, right? It doesn't have to work for everybody, but it does work for people that want to actually like do it and can live, because like we do a lot of dumb funny videos.
I know, and you know what? I was looking at that. I hate to interrupt you, because I'm doing video. I do a ton of videos. I got I think almost 700 videos out. I'm more on the technical side. And I said, man, I would love to pull that off. And even though I can be funny, it would require so much scripting for me and so much trial and error to do it that I couldn't naturally pull that off. And I've looked at those. I've got one that I want to do. His name is, he's a comedian, and he does these 2 personality videos. He's called Mr. Red, and he's got these, hair clips like earrings and a turban, and he's Hispanic, he's Cuban, and he does them in half English, half Spanish. And I said, I could literally pull that off, because I can kind of get into his character. And figuring out how to do those funny videos like that, it's a lot of work for me. It's an enormous amount of work. How are you actually pulling those off? Are you guys just being spontaneous, or does that require a lot of planning and scripting?
I wouldn't necessarily say planning or scripting. For us, it's all about like the trends and following the trends. But we have to have a trend that somewhat reflects the business sense of pest control, right? Where, some of them are dumb, and it doesn't necessarily reflect that, like we're the
serious
expert
company.
But for us, it's like I posted one this morning about my technician doing a dance, because he like got a nickname from our customers as 5-star Juan. So it's literally him dancing, because it says, when a customer says that you live up to your 5-star Juan name, and he's just doing dance. Or the other day, me and him had a reel, and it was literally like when a customer yells at you, and the trend was like, you stay home with your baby, or like when the oldest sibling of one family marries the baby of the other family, and the oldest siblings holding their significant other like a baby. And so ours was like when a customer yells at Juan and he calls me for backup or whatever, so he like jumps in my arms and I hold him like a baby. But like that, right, where like it literally said like customer yells at this technician. I had 5 to, I don't even remember. I think there's 16 total comments, but they're all comments from customers saying like, "Who yelled at Juan? Nobody can yell at Juan. Who
Right.
send me the address?" Things like that. Where for me, it's not necessarily going to be a direct sale. It's just more so engagement with customers. Where then if somebody shares that reel and is like, these are my pest control guys. I freaking love them. They're so funny.
Yeah.
Then it's like, hey, but are they actually good? It starts conversations, things like that. So I don't ever look at it from being like, I don't think I'm going to sell something off of this video. It's just, how do we reflect our business and what
Yeah.
we do with this trend that might be freaking dumb, but it just
Right.
kind of shows our personality a little bit. And then again, it falls under the fact of like our technician Joe. He's been here a month, but we show him on reels and we show him, kind of opening up to being on social media, and he's a shyer guy.
Right.
But then he goes to customers' homes and they're like, "Oh, dude, you're Joe. Like, welcome to the freaking Polite Pesco family, dude. Like, how do you like it?
Right.
Whatever." And so, like at previous companies, being a new technician or seeing new technicians, it was always like, "Whoa, where's my new guy?" Like, I mean, where's my old guy? You're the new guy. I'm not going to trust you, whatever. But like the way that we've used social media, it kind of already breaks down that barrier of like, hey, like I already know you, if that makes sense.
Right.
So
Right.
we don't necessarily use it to do direct sales or anything. It's kind of an all encompassing thing to like just bring our brand awareness to the forefront.
Yeah. No. It's the old staying in front of your customer
Mm-hmm.
mentality in sales, where we had to stay in front of our customers. That it was done through a letter, it was done through a postcard,
Yeah.
it was done, through a phone call every month,
Yep.
where, hey, we're just calling to see how everything is. And it gets to the point where the customer tells you, listen, I don't have a
Don't call me
problem.
again.
Yeah, when I
Yeah.
do, I'll call you. Don't call me.
Yeah.
So I think you understand your audience, you understand your avatar, you understand this is where you met, and this is where they are, and this is where you need to continue to be, is where your customers are. And I get it. And then, like I said, I'm an old guy who gets it. Now I got to find me somebody, which is our next thing, is I really want to do this, but I really understand that I have a limitation. I can't. And,
Yeah,
and
just as long as you make it your voice,
yeah,
as long as it's genuine. Because I
yeah,
see a lot of companies that try to do like the funny reels, and then they'll go out and like, and I wear AirPods all day, and I've talked to 5, 6 different owners of companies. There's one guy that I talked to, and he has done some funny videos, but then he goes to the house and he's like, "Hey, how uh, how are you?"
yeah,
Um, "Oh, okay." And then you can feel it. And he's like, "Yeah, I don't think that customer is going to stay." And I'm like, well, yeah, because your expectations, it's all about expectations in our business. If
yeah,
you put this expectation out that you're this fun loving, cool guy that like can connect and is funny, but then you show up and you're not that person, well, neither
yeah,
is that customer. That
yeah.
customer is not going to be
It's all
the
about
person that
branding.
you expect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the branding. That's a whole lot of issue when the company service doesn't live up to the marketing department's reflection of who you are. And that's where a lot of these guys that are technicians get turned off by the whole marketing branding. My brand is that I show up and I get the job done. Great.
Yeah.
But I you missed it. What this is. I think your company, in what I see and what I see online, what I see by talking to you, what I see about how your success is, that your branding and your marketing is being backed up by the service and who you are as, even look, I've even had this issue at church. We're a loving church, and then you walk into the door and nobody greets you. And if you walk in with the wrong clothes, when you walk in with the wrong clothing and you walk in with tattoos, everybody's like, it's like
Yeah.
you're not really reflecting what you're saying. It's BS. You're buying your own BS, but you're not living up to that. And with me, since I tend to be more technical, I haven't want to try to do the funny things, because I'm usually funnier in person. When I talk to somebody, I'm always smiling. People are like, I was told all the time when I was in corporate, says, bro, don't ever lose that smile, because I'm always, but I'm like, I'm a practical joker. I'm like
Yeah.
constant, but when people look at me in this interaction, sometimes I'm focusing on what you're trying to say, and I'm focusing on the interview, and I can come across as more matter of fact. But then at home, I'm more of a cuddly kind of, touchy feely kind of guy, which I am. I'm a
Yeah.
hugger. I meet people and I hug. People are like, standoffish, but it's kind of
Sure.
like, so I'm trying to constantly always that I don't misrepresent myself and misrepresent, but I'd rather the customer took me more seriously online, because I am dealing with mostly older still people
Yeah.
that have the money to buy what I sell. When you have
100%.
the $750 million home, you expect a different level of service. It took me forever, believe it or not, Travis. When I was younger, I had to grow a beard because I always had a baby face, and I had a really hard time people taking me seriously. And I grew a
Yeah.
beard at a very young age, and because that would just get me a little bit more, I guess, respect. So
Yep.
in my 20s, you talked to me on the phone, and then you met me in person. It was like, and even with the
Yeah.
podcast, people now like, oh, I thought I have people in their 60s and 70s calling me and says, bro, I'm 51. I says, bro, I thought you were like in your 30s, because of the content, the way I deliver it. So I guess I am youthful, but I like hanging around with young people. I like
Yeah.
hanging around with people in their 20s, 18 and 20s, because they have all these ideas and they see things in their marketplace. And I said, okay, this is where it's heading. I need to stay on top of that. A lot of guys don't want to do that. And so I, again, it's just, I really like what you've done. We've talked a couple of times over text, but I said, there's a couple of companies I need to go visit that I'm gonna, go out
We
in the
we
field. And
we'd love to have you, but you just got to bring us a cigar, man.
you got it, bro. I'll bring you a whole box. You want a cigar? I'll bring you a whole damn box. But yeah, no, I'm gonna be going. I just had what we just had. I went to Georgia, and I had a cigar with Pete Angel. Um, and we were actually sitting at this place called it was a brewery, and they had an outside area, really nice, beautiful, in the middle of a park. And we sat out there for almost an hour and a half, smoking a cigar and having a dark beer. So yeah, so I plan to, I'm going to see if I can get a chance to start traveling this year and go seek a couple. I think it's important. We've been having this discussion about actually going out and seeing what other companies are actually doing.
Yeah.
And those that are, like getting the ideas and saying, we might not be able to implement all of it. What can we use? And I think that's more an important step, is where can I start implementing and doing to change my situation, to grow, to maybe turn my company around. I think it's really important, bro. I've had a blast. Thank you so much. Any last words? Anything you want to?
No, the one thing that I'll end on. I just heard this quote last week, and it kind of hit home with me because of how we've done things, and even with technicians and things like that. But there's a quote that literally like freaking shot me in the heart last week, and it's good is not good when great is expected. And so for me, with our expectations and all of those things, if you're just doing good when great is expected, you're gonna feel like, or they're going to assume that you're not doing
Right.
what you want. And so when you're working with social media, that's probably the biggest thing, right? We get customers that call in and say, we were referred by 12 different people, uh, and they love you and whatever. But if we don't have that proper expectation set from the very beginning, if great is their expectation and we only do good, then it's not good.
Right.
They look at it as a failure. So I would probably end on that and just say, if good's not good, if it's greatness that's expected. And
Brilliant.
yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, brother. Appreciate it.
No, thank you, man. I'm excited that you let me on here to speak about it a little bit. A lot of people have shied away from me being a person just because they saw
Yeah.
what we were doing, but didn't necessarily trust what we were doing,
Right.
um, or expect it. Like I have quotes that I've people who have burned me. And one of the people, told me that social media isn't scalable. It's hard, but it definitely is scalable. And then
That
another
is
person told
scalable.
me, yeah. And then another person told me when I told them how we were going to grow, he told me that I'd be lucky to have 150 by my first year, and we ended the first year at 537, and now we're over 2,500 accounts. So a little bit over 150. But as long as you know what you're doing, and you want to do it that way, it doesn't matter if success is today. Um, as long as you like stay consistent at it, you'll be successful. So you don't have to necessarily do some funny videos. I want you to. We'll talk after, and I'll give you some ideas
No,
on funny videos.
that'd be great because I've been looking at doing it. It's just that the bandwidth that I have right now to be able to focus on something. I'm focused on getting 5 things finished because I'm also really pushing myself as a person to finish a lot of things, even if I get no help. But I started it, I need to finish
Yeah,
it, and I know that that's my big problem. But I've already started on 2 big things that I need to finish. The academy, everybody's been, bro, when are you going to finish it? When are you going to, they need the
yeah,
technical training. I haven't done technical training in a long time because it does take a lot from me. And I've been kind of being a little selfish too, if I could be honest, that I want to save the material for, selling, because I do this podcast for free for the last 8 years and I've never monetized it.
yeah,
A lot of people keep calling me, hey, you want to monetize? We can sponsor, whatever. Not interested in getting sponsors. So yeah, man. So I know I love the energy. I love what your younger people are bringing to this industry. I know you get a lot of crap about how you guys are just destroying the market, doing things differently. But the iPhone wasn't popular when it came out. Neither was the automobile when it displaced the car.
yeah,
The buggy whip business.
yeah. Neither was Google, but now everybody's on it.
Exactly. So I it does take time, but I mean, I'm talking to a lot of younger people. Tom Miche is one of them. I love what he's doing. You're not necessarily very vocal and very out there. You're quietly doing your thing. And I see what you're doing. And I said, man, this is encouraging. Where I think older people can learn a lot from this and change. And I'm excited about that because this is, in my heart, as when I was doing youth ministry for 20 something years, young people bring, I think that's what kept me young and from going insane. And I love having these conversations from people that are actually doing something, not complaining about how there's no opportunities for them. And here
Yeah,
you are, you're 20 something, 30 somethings going out there and actually doing a legitimate business. You're not trying to be a YouTube superstar marketer where you're not actually
yeah,
producing anything. You're producing real businesses with real value, providing a real service in a traditional environment, utilizing all of the modern things that are available to you. And it is super encouraging and super exciting. When I hear a lot of people put you down, putting especially young people down, there's plenty of people. It's just that you're in the way of a lot of this happening, and especially when they must be doing something wrong. They'll never do this. I hear, especially with the marketing and the new stuff, people are intimidated by what they don't understand.
definitely.
And I think that you got it. That's why I said I need a conversation with you, because you get it, and I see the need for it, and I embrace it because I'll embrace it. But yeah, it's encouraging. I mean, it really is. I wish there were a lot of younger people that are doing this that I could talk to that are doing this, to bring them on. So if you know of some, send them my way, because I would love to have them on, to talk about the new way of pest control companies grow instead of, the old way. Still
Yeah.
time true tested principles. because you're using them. You're not using
Oh
any
yeah,
new principles. It's just the way that you're delivering them. You know,
definitely.
everybody thought Instacart would never make it. Who the hell's going to order groceries and have them delivered?
Yeah,
You know, and then here I am.
everybody.
And here I am. You know, I still, believe it or not, I have this argument with my girlfriend because we're both the same age, but she's like super busy. She hates cooking. She hates the kitchen. So to her, if she orders what she's going to eat, she's happy. I still like going to the grocery store daily and picking out my vegetables and picking out the meat. I don't like it when somebody picked out the meat for me. It doesn't look right.
Yeah.
But I still use Instacart and I'll say, okay, you got me. I'll use it. Eggs, milk, this, that, and the other things that I
Yep.
don't have to, like staples, I'm okay with it. I just still have to go every day because I buy my meat every day. And then I say, I want a ribeye to look like this. I don't want it to look like this. And the person shopping isn't going to pick out my vegetables, you know, pick set out avocado. I got to wait 3 days to eat, you know? So you see, so there, you know, you can teach an old dog's new trick if the old dog is still willing to learn. And you guys bring that enormous amount of that energy that is the of possibilities that a lot of older people have already lost. They're beat up, they're tired, they don't see it, they don't know how they're gonna, you know, they're ready. I had one guy the other day, I said, bro, I just feel like giving all these guys licenses. Literally told me this. He's 60 something. I feel like giving all these guys license and just telling them to go start up. They're done. And I think that, like I said, it's encouraged. It really is. So thank you for being on. And you know, I'm going to focus on that verse that that quote that you just gave us, because it does apply to me too.
Awesome. Well, no, honestly, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it, and I've been looking forward to making this a possibility for us to actually sit down and talk. So I appreciate
Yeah,
the
we will.
opportunity.
Let me get a chance to get my ducks in a row and get my mind in a place to, you know, I just hired a new sales guy, you know, so that's been,
Heck yeah.
yeah, no, so that we're growing. I made the commitment this year. I took a break intentionally for a lot of reasons I cannot disclose. But I had to, you know, slow it down. One for my health, one for my mental, and then the other were financial reasons. I did actually have to slow it down for those reasons. And but I'm encouraged to. This is why I'm having these conversations. There's a lot of people like me out there that need it. They need a good kick in the nuts. I thought about starting a new consulting firm, the Kick in the Nuts consulting firm. You know, where some people just need that and that's it, you know. But thank you, bro. I do have I got plans to start doing some traveling, maybe if not the middle of this year, next year, going out and visiting you guys. I'm going to start locally. I got Jamie Hannon Service. He's been wanting me to go up there. He's got an incredible operation in Port St. Lucie, like 2 hours from me. I'm going to be going. I'm going to shout out to him. This is so rad because this guy, and this is again markets and needs. He started in Port St. Lucie where there was nothing there. Now that city has grown massively to the point where he has his own body shop for his own vehicles.
Wow.
So they repair, they build their own outfits, they outfit their own vehicles, they do their own body work, they do their own painting of all their vehicles. I mean, the guy, what he's done is amazing. You know, he's like, I don't know, 15, 20 techs at this point. And I mean, they got their own shop to do maintenance, the repairs, oil changes, tire rotations, everything is done in-house. So I thought that's an impressive operation. He just started a distribution business, you know, so I think it's pretty encouraging. And he's younger. He's not as old as I am. You know, I think I'm old already. I'm 51. I'm half a century, bro. I'm already past middle age. So but no, brother.
Hopefully you last till 110, and this isn't even half yet.
Bro, hope so. From your mouth to God's ears.
Well, awesome. Thanks, Franklin. I appreciate it, man.
Have a great one, bro. Take care of yourself.
You too, man.
Bye-bye.
Bye.